Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RPM podcast. Eric Brennan, Eric Graham, Josh Matthews with you on what was a spectacular weekend so far, and week that is. It's got that feel, guys. I could feel short track season is upon us. Opening night at Wall Stadium Speedway coming up this Saturday. We finally got some practice in, and there is a whole bunch of stuff to talk about on the big board of stuff that's happening around the country. Eric, you're giving me a funny look already.
That's what I do.
We're not even 5 seconds in. How was your weekend, fellas?
Good. 2 days of practice at Wall. Went to New Egypt on Saturday night. Very good opening night for them. They had a normal sportsman race, but the other two races were great.
New Egypt was a blast. Josh, where were you?
Let's see.
Not at New Egypt.
No,
Not at Wall.
Poser.
No. This weekend, I did some work on the flooring for my house and helped my neighbor change an intake.
So you did car stuff. You just weren't at the race.
I wanted to be at the track, but there were some logistic issues with parts being ordered and things like that.
You should have come to New Egypt. It was a blast. As a matter of fact, the whole night was pretty much just Sam and Eric finding a way to humiliate the fact that I have a New York accent. But little do they know that they're the weird ones, not me.
I don't know.
I don't know about that either.
You were the outsider.
It wasn't just us, by the way.
Listen,
I had one of the best kart racers in the country making fun of you, so that should say something. You should feel honored.
Yeah, but it's not that difficult to make fun of me to begin with. So I don't know how much pride you could take in that.
Well, we got to take it easy on Brendan this week, just because we don't want to get into another Sad Panda episode and go off the
Sad
rails.
Panda
So
is
let's all
gone.
take a vow here. Eric, you're not going to pout this episode.
No, not unless I don't like what you guys
you're
are
not
saying.
going to Google the meaning of life for a whole segment. And I'll try not to say the same catchphrase more than 3 times.
Heat race.
No, that's going to be a T-shirt, so we're sticking with that.
Well, since we're on the subject of how easy it is to make fun of people,
Eric Brennan.
it's also the same to do that for IndyCar Series officials, as Josh coughs up a fur ball in the background. Again, IndyCar has found a way to shoot itself in the foot, which is something that they've been incredibly good at over the last couple of years. Who could forget the Brian Barnhart incident in New Hampshire in 2011 in the rain when Will Power made the infamous double bird signal to the tower? And there's been so many more since then. And it happened again this past weekend in Long Beach. Another dull IndyCar Series event for the series, this one coming on the street course, which is probably the second most prestigious event of the calendar year for that series. Granted, there was a little bit of drama towards the end of the race, but it didn't come with a pass nor contact. It came from what we're going to describe as a non-call, which we may argue the definition of later on, after Simon Pagenaud apparently violated the blend line rule, which is when the cars come off the pit lane. And
I don't think there was any apparent about that. I think he pretty blatantly...
Well, from what it showed, he did have the right side tires cross this blend line, which they're not supposed to do until they clear it. I think the blend line they're actually using, considering it's a street course, is the double yellow line of the road that they have to keep the right side tires over until they get to the end of it, because that is the single fastest and the most opportune passing zone on that track. So they don't want guys darting to the left to make that left-hand corner and cutting people off and clearing out their front wings and whatnot.
there aren't many passing zones on that track.
No. But Pagenaud did that, and the series, after reviewing it for about 6 to 8 laps, and we're not talking laps at Phoenix, we're talking laps at Long Beach, which are close to about a minute in time, they elected to allow Pagenaud to keep his spot, thus essentially taking what could have been another win away from Scott Dixon. We were kind of talking back and forth amongst the three of us while this was going on, and it was actually interesting, Eric, you being the official that you are. You were trying to err on their side a little bit about how long the call was taking up until they made the decision, which was just to give Pagenaud a warning.
Well, okay. I'm one of those rare officials that does road course and ovals. Ovals, you have to make a decision. You have like 30 seconds at the max. If you don't make a decision that quick, you're pretty much not making one. A road course is exact opposite. You're going to take at least 30 seconds because you have a big powwow. Everybody talks about it. People argue about it. And you could tell there's definitely arguments going on there. because it was taking a long time.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the IndyCar Series panel is 3 stewards. I forget exactly who they are, and then Brian Barnhart oversees the whole thing. But apparently, he's not judge and jury. He can't overrule them. And there was a minority.
He said he wouldn't.
Right.
There's a difference.
It sounds like it was 2-1.
You have to have a director. You have to have somebody in charge. It just sounds like he said we're just gonna. It's almost like he doesn't want to take the responsibility that he's going to put it on them.
Right. Now, Josh, I don't know if you were watching the race live as this all
I
unfolded,
was.
because we were kind of shooting back and forth as to what went on. There is an image out there, which came around the second pit stop of the race that shows that Dixon might have done the same thing, but TV might have missed it, or it may have cut away right at that moment.
So let me get a little more in depth on being a road course official. When you make a call on a road course, it's not like an oval. You guys are both used to the oval world where if you break a rule, that's pretty much it. If you're speeding down pit lane in NASCAR, you're getting penalized. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. In road course, it's always judged. There's no black and white on anything. So it's always judged on whether or not you gain an advantage by doing what you did. Now, in this case, Pagano definitely got an advantage. He won the race because, in my opinion, he won the race because he cut the blend line there.
And those stewards we were talking about, former race car driver and the quickest lap time holder ever at Indianapolis, Arie Luyendyk, Max Pappas, and Dan Davis, who was a former motorsports executive, were the 3 who had that call in their hands. Josh, do you think that was the right call, or do you think Dixon may have actually been robbed of a chance to win at Long Beach?
Well, if not gonna go into what you had said about where maybe the TV missed or whatever, but go into what Pagano did exiting. If you look at it as a black and white call or black and white violation, you can't cross that line. Then the video clearly shows that he was very close. I mean, we're talking an inch or two. I mean, he was right near the edge.
Right, but say he was 10 seconds ahead and he did that,
I agree.
You would never even. They'd say, "Hey, cut the line," and they'd say, "Well, no further."
If there's nobody around,
Right.
he wasn't endangering anybody else. It was like, all right, well, that was.
But in my point is in NASCAR, that would be a penalty no matter what.
Yes, but in the way that this one unfolded, that he did cut that line, be it barely, he still cut down and got ahead of Dixon, barely, and changed.
But that was enough.
See, and here's the thing.
Exactly, that's the point. He may have barely done it, and he barely squeezed in, but that changed.
When you're an official, you know you've done your job if nobody notices that you exist. If they made that call against Pagano, no one would have said anything about the officials. Mm-hmm. So that was the right call to make. They should have either put him back a spot, which you can do that. Although IndyCar kind of says these are our penalties, or if you give him a drive-through, he would have lost like 5-6 positions at least.
And the other thing is, it was so hard to pass on Sunday. I mean, I think we saw 6 to 10 passes on the racetrack that had nothing to do with pit stops or pit strategy.
It is a difficult track.
If you're Pagano, you gotta do that. You gotta cut to the left.
He wasn't even. Nobody should be mad at Pagano. Like,
well, it's not his fault. He got away with it.
He wasn't even saying, "Oh, I'm going to cut this off." He just said, "I have to do this right now." Like, he wasn't even thinking. He was
looking at his left mirror, not at his right front, for whether it's. Yeah, he made a judgment call that I'm going to clear.
There's some people that are mad at Pagano. There's no reason to be mad at Pagano.
I don't believe there's any malice in what Pagano
Although
did.
It's funny how so many people think he looks like the French guy from Talladega Nights, but that's another.
Well, even Jalopnik put an article out.
Yeah.
Now, something that did come from this, and it was the response by, guess who, Dixon's car owner, Chip Ganassi. He said that he would like to see a black and white system implemented. Now, granted, I don't believe NASCAR uses their video camera technology for things like pit road entry and exit. It's more for live action pit stops and whatnot. And they also have a separate system they use for pit road speeding. But Ganassi would like to see some sort of technology implemented for something like this. Now, my only argument to that is Long Beach appears to be an exception to what you would normally see at other IndyCar tracks. I mean, you don't see a blend line like in Indianapolis. It's the apron of the racetrack. Mm-hmm. At other road courses, there are blend lines, but I don't think they're in as precarious of positions as they are in Long Beach.
There's a couple. I can't think of the tracks off my head, but there's a couple that are a little...
But if knowing that something was said in the driver's meeting about this particular blend line going into Turn 1, Why? With or without television cameras? Wasn't somebody standing at the end of the straightaway monitoring this specifically? That's what I don't understand.
My problem is that the director should have made a call. That's my main problem. Like Indy tried to take a similar formula to what Formula One does, where they have a 3-person council and then they go to Charlie, and then Charlie makes the call. But instead, they did the opposite. The director can take their opinion. My job at Wall is to give my opinion to Larry Reed, our race director, and then he makes a decision. There have to have somebody that's making a decision, and it just sounds like there's a lot of finger pointing involved in this.
I think it not so much needing a black and white system. I mean, the cameras clearly showed, what happened. This was entirely on the officials to, say, well, there's the evidence. Here's the effect it had. What do we do? And make a call based off of that. And by letting it go, I don't know. I thought it was the wrong call. And, I don't know what their reason for letting it go was. Maybe because that was the only way it was going to be exciting. I don't know.
Some directors just are afraid to make a call. And I think that's what you saw, unfortunately.
Well, now it's another opportunity that the series has. Well, not really an opportunity, but another scenario where they don't look good. I mean, and it's bad enough that the racing product hasn't been that good. I mean, the series has found themselves in this position before when the racing was good. Now it's not so good. I mean, at least it hasn't been for the last 2 races. And I wouldn't even say that St. Pete, the opener, was that good. So they're on a pretty bad stretch of races. And there's no left.
There's no road for officials on the road course scene. Like there's no training ground. Like there's karting, and we go through officials like water. There's not really like on oval tracks. There's millions of officials everywhere. It's not really that way in road course racing, and it's hard to even those calls will happen once a year. So it's not like it's easy to train a road course official. On an oval, you'll be making 50 calls a night. On a road course, you make 1 a day. So it's really hard to find good road course officials out there.
You also need some type of policy in place that it's hard to say that the series should adopt like a strict ball and strike call like the pro system that NASCAR uses in any type of scenario. Because like you said, with the punishment fit the crime, I think the best punishment would have been for Pagano to give up the spot, not necessarily make him come in for either a stop and go or get a 20-second time penalty like they do in F1 after they review an incident. So there's some room to flex, but the problem is they were reluctant to. Same thing with Max Chilton. Chilton was cutting turn 5, going to the right side of the curves on a right-handed turn.
Then they just said, hey, stop doing that.
That was it. And Paul Tracy caught it right away. And I'll tell you, he's exceptional in the booth. And I'm a little biased because I love the announcing side of the sport a little bit too. But Tracy will call a spade, and that's exactly what he did. And the amazing thing was, even though Chilton was doing that, he still couldn't make a pass at the end of that next straightaway. That's how hard it was to race at Long Beach this past weekend. It wasn't good.
Well, I mean, it's not. Indy's unfortunately having some issues, and that's not the best. It's not my favorite track. It's kind of like the Monaco of IndyCar.
See, I like that track. I think
it's a pretty setting.
It's a difficult track. I like it as,
You just need maybe one more passing zone.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that it's good it provides a good product. I mean, but to drive it,
it'd be fun to take your car out there and drive it, but
yeah.
I don't know if it necessarily brings you a good race.
Exactly.
They're in Alabama this week, so that should be a little more interesting.
Now, over the last couple of weeks, we did talk about the aerodynamic build of the IndyCar series and how they kind of went away from the original DW12 design, which was a spec body, you could say, and it produced really good racing. And, Eric, at first, I was against the idea, and after the first 3 races of the year, I can't wait to see the series try to migrate back to that. And it sounds like that's possible. A report that came out this afternoon is that IndyCar, it's
our fearless producer.
IndyCar could in fact switch to a standard aero kit by 2017. Now they're saying they're not necessarily going to revert back to the spec body that they were using at the debut of the new car, but rather they would like to develop a single aero kit for both Chevrolet and Honda to use. Now that's a little bit tricky. That, by the way, came from CEO Mark Miles. Not sure if I said that or not. If that was the case,
put parachutes on the cars, call it a day.
No. I don't know who would design the thing. If you have Chevy and Honda, I mean, it would probably be a Dallara aero kit, considering they're still using a Dallara safety cell. But they probably want to try to entertain the two
Get
options.
rid of all those damn filaments. It doesn't need to look like a transformer.
Well, that too. And I think also the fact that Honda is so far out to lunch right now, and there's a legitimate fear as to how competitive they're going to be at Indy.
And it's the 100th Indy 500. You're going to have a crap show for that? I mean...
Meh.
It could be a mess, and I hope it's not, especially because when the month of May rolls
Look at
around,
how good it was just a couple years ago.
Oh,
It was like the best race of the year.
Well, even if you go back to 2014, before they implemented the aero kits last year, that was still a great race when Hunter Ray and Cashman Evans were bouncing back and forth. Now, you may not even see Hunter Ray in the top 15 the way things are running because Honda is so far behind the 8 ball. It's going to be a fun month of May. They have Alabama this week, which a track which I believe was originally designed for motorcycle racing and has put on some good IndyCar shows.
Is that the track where Hinchcliffe broke on the second lap and they just showed him napping in his car the rest of the race?
Yes.
That was pretty...
I think they went caution-free.
I think
he
was stretching for a while, and then he just took a nap, and they showed him sleeping.
Yep. That's the one. So we'll see. That's a purpose-built road course. So it won't be an oval. It won't be a street course. So we'll see what type of racing we'll have there as well. And then that'll, of course, will lead into the month of May, the race on the road course, and then the 100th Indy 500. Should be fun.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I'm not going to say should. Hopefully it'll be fun.
Well, the storylines themselves are fun to follow. Well, we have some other things that we're going to touch on, which include that of technology and safety on the NASCAR side, on the heels of what was a rather exciting weekend of racing at Bristol. And we're going to touch on that when we come back. We'll be right back to the RPM podcast. Stay with us.
All right, this is Eric Graham from the RPM podcast. Josh and Eric Brennan won't leave me alone until I do one of these read things. So, follow us at Facebook. Either search RPM Podcast, go to facebook.com/Racing Podcast New Jersey. Hopefully this sounds freaking organic enough for Josh because he won't leave me the hell alone about it. But here's your read. Follow us on Facebook. Do it now.
This week we really wanted to try to get the show out as quickly as we could, and with schedule changes and whatnot, some of us having to work late and other commitments, we kind of pushed
some
it
of
back
us
a little bit.
meeting
Doing hard time.
Yeah, me working in prisons. Fantastic times.
That soap isn't going to drop itself.
No, it's rough.
That's why you're smiling so much.
I meant working in the prison is rough.
Right.
All right, before I get myself in any more trouble, the silver lining of this is the fact that today happens to be the day that Tony Stewart has single-handedly rocked the auto racing world, I guess you could say.
Again.
For a number of reasons. Yeah, again, good and bad. He announced today that all his scans are good. Now, mind you, the team announced on Monday or Tuesday that Brian Vickers was going to be in the car this weekend. Now it's confirmed that Stewart is going to make his return and attempt to go the distance this Sunday in Richmond. He's going to start the car next week in Talladega. Ty Dillon will take the wheel after that. He said because of the increased risk of a higher or more harder impact, he doesn't want to chance it going through the whole race. So everything's all on the up for Stewart. He's coming back. It's his last year. And this is on the heels of an interview which he gave to MRN.com.
Does it really serve a purpose to start and then hand it over? I mean,
You get the points.
I know, I understand that, but if he's already missed that much.
He has a waiver, though, and you need to be in the top 30 in points.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. That was the one thing that I ended up leaving out.
I'm sorry.
Stewart has been granted. No, don't be sorry.
Okay, all right, I wasn't aware of this part.
I did your job.
Granted the thank you, sir.
Top 30 in points.
Same exemption which Kyle Busch was granted, although Busch's injury happened on a racetrack, Tony's did not. And Tony's actually coming back a couple races sooner than what Kyle did. So that's the point behind him at least wanting to start Talladega because the points will go to his name.
Okay.
This also came on the heels, which was rather bizarre, of Stewart commenting on what has been a lug nut issue. Now, we were just talking about the new pro system that NASCAR implemented not too long ago, and it included the fact that one of the things that they couldn't control by not having 40 or 43 officials on pit road is lug nuts and how that's monitored. So they elected to put it in the team's hands. You want to fasten 4 out of 5? That's up to you. Over the last 2 weeks, though, between Texas and Bristol, we've seen loose lug nuts cost drivers races. And in Bristol, it didn't happen to hamper the efforts of Carl Edwards, who ended up winning on Sunday, but it did impact a couple of drivers like Jimmy Johnson in Texas
Can I
and Martin
squash
Truex
this?
Jr. last week. Yes.
I'm sick of talking about lug nuts.
Well, there's a reason why we're talking about it.
But you get a penalty, or you have to come back in and put tires on. It's the same damn difference.
Well, here's the perspective of Tony Stewart, three-time NASCAR Sprint Cup Series champion. Quote, "We shouldn't be playing games with safety to win races. It should be outperforming the other teams, not jeopardizing drivers' lives by teams putting two lug nuts on to try to get more spots off pit road. I guarantee you that envelope is going to get pushed until somebody gets hurt. You will not have heard a rant that's going to be as bad as what I'm going to come out of my mouth. If a driver gets hurt because of a loose wheel, that hurts one of them." So that's Tony Stewart again at MRN.com. You can see the whole article there where he continues to go on. Pretty strong words from Stewart. And now it comes to pass, just over the last 20 minutes or so, that NASCAR has levied a $35,000 fine on Stewart for his comments. Now, there's a lot of ways we could take this. Eric, you wanted to go on the officiating part of the lug nut rule itself.
This is why NASCAR is like losing popularity. They're neutering their drivers' personalities. If this was Formula One, Bernie Ecclestone would make a joke about Tony Stewart's nuts. That's what Bernie Ecclestone's is. I mean, and that's part of why Formula One's the most popular racing series in the. And we lost Eric Brennan.
Oh, what a visual!
But it's am I lying? Bernie Ecclestone would just insult Tony Stewart if he said something like this.
Well, and this is also part of some newer type of policy that came out. But I don't think this is a jab at what NASCAR is doing directly. I think it's a legitimate concern. Because
And I agree. I just think it's wrong of NASCAR to fine him.
Oh, I agree 100%. Because at some point, if sitting down, because here's the thing, NASCAR ended up implementing this entire system to try to eliminate the fact of having able bodies on pit road and reduce the number of people that are around the moving cars. So they went ahead and did that.
It was to increase safety, and now what Stewart has done is express a safety concern.
Right.
So I mean,
now here's the thing.
This is why Bristol. This is one of the many reasons why Bristol was 2/3 empty.
Well, we don't know for sure if Stewart brought these concerns to NASCAR before making these comments public. Now, if he did, and they turned a blind eye to him, then I applaud him for finding some sort of media outlet to push this message
But
through.
it doesn't matter. You should be able to say within reason. Like, this isn't like saying, "Hey, NASCAR is crap and you shouldn't watch NASCAR." He's saying, "I have a safety concern." You know, he's not. He's not trashing NASCAR. He's just saying, "This is my concern." Like, you should not get fined for this.
Well,
you should be able to trash NASCAR and not get fined as long as you're not like. I don't even know how to put it right.
Well,
he's
can
not,
we compare
he's not
this?
hurting the product by saying this.
But
I don't think.
Do you remember Kyle Busch's rant about the car tomorrow?
Right, and Denny Hamlin said things, and then Denny Hamlin said, "I can't talk to you anymore because I'll get fined," and that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Now I see where he was bashing NASCAR than it was a safety concern.
Other sports, you get fined if you don't talk to the media. In our sport, you get fined if you do talk to the media. So there's something wrong there.
So you have to make all your money off of commercials and just being perfect in every way. And I
and it's capitalism. If you're, I'm gonna say a naughty word, but if you're that much of a douche, that you'll lose your sponsorship. So it's self-policing.
I agree.
We just got approved on iTunes. Why do you have to walk that
douche
tightrope
is not
already?
a bad douche, ass, butthole are not bad words.
Whereas my son would say, "You're a butt face."
Now,
You can even say the S word. You can't really say the F word or the C word. I didn't say the S word. I
yeah,
just
but
said
the S word is in George Carlin's 7 Dirty Words, so that may not fly.
But douche isn't in one of them.
No,
douche is
may
perfectly
not have
fine.
been around when George Carlin was alive.
Douche has been around a long time. All right?
I don't think I could ever get the range of this.
Plastic bags of vinegar and water existed long before George Carlin.
I think we put a few. I think we went
All right.
with too few lug nuts on this conversation, and the wheels have fallen off. So
Now, have you guys ever heard the expression, if you're going to come to me with a problem, you better have a solution? Well, here's something else that Stewart said. And again, this is the same quote from the same article. If you want us to only put on one lug nut, then give us hubs that have one lug nut, like an IndyCar Formula One car, and then we won't have to worry about it.
Interesting.
When they made a decision, they were not going to monitor it. It was a big mistake they made off the bat. When you preach about safety, why would you sit there and have cars that are running 200 miles per hour at the end of a straightaway that don't have all the lug nuts on the wheels that should be on it? We shouldn't be playing games with safety to win races. And that was the tail end of that.
The problem with putting a one lug nut on is that you'll take away like the skill of the pit stop.
Right. but I guess that's the fine line that we're going to cross here.
Look at
Now,
Formula One.
NASCAR's
2.5 seconds. They changed 4 tires.
Well, NASCAR's in that position now, Josh. It's what's more important? Is it having officials on pit road to make sure the lug nuts are tight? Is it going to continue to be in the team's hands on how many they're going to tighten
First
down?
off, putting officials on pit road is a bigger safety concern than not
because
having lug nuts on the wheels. The more people you put on pit road,
I
the
will
more likely.
disagree with you here.
Because you're afraid a wheel's going to fly up. Why can't you have wheel tethers?
Well, that I think is a better option because the officials that step out on the racetrack, or not on the racetrack, on pit road, racetrack too, because
I
there
can
are some
think of
safety
one.
I've
officials
been a
stepping
pit
out there.
official. I've been a pit official. I've raced cars. I felt much, much safer racing a car than I felt being a pit official.
Correct, but you know what you're signing up for, just like the driver does when he steps in the car. He knows what he's getting into. If
But
something
yes and
happens
no,
to him,
yes and no, because
that's-
a lot of the F1 guys are all volunteers that work. Those corner workers, and half of them have barely any clue what they're doing.
But they know the risk that comes with. I mean, they should, and if they don't, that's on them.
Not like the guy that got ran over by a crane that was pulling a car off of the track.
Wait, what?
This it had to be a couple years ago. They actually had one of the front end loaders or one of those mobile cranes picking up a car and taking it off the track, and it ran over one of the officials.
Right. I do remember that story now. He slipped and fell, which. But
Still, why was he
nevertheless,
that
though,
close to?
If you're going to be an official and you're going to be a corner worker, you know that there's an. I mean, look, there's increased risks in going
But
to work in certain industries.
you're talking about unnecessary. Tony Stewart's talking about unnecessary risks. Putting more people on pit road is an unnecessary risk. Wheel tethers.
Yeah,
Done.
Right. the
You want a
tethers-
solution? There's your solution.
That would work, but I don't know if it would work on. Now we have tethers on our open wheel cars at
Yeah.
Wall, correct?
Yes.
And do they have a similar wheel hub like what they use?
It's the 5 wide hub. It's a similar situation, sure.
So the tethering idea would be a better option because I think Stewart has a point. We've kind of limited cars getting up in the air, and watch in 2 weeks something may happen. Knock on wood, that proves me wrong. I think the biggest risk that any motorsport faces is something going over the fencing, and a wheel, big, heavy, hit the right way, can in fact do that. With these issues,
Without tethers, doesn't matter if you have 5 lug nuts on her. You still have the chance of that happening.
You need hoods tethered too. I mean,
they did do that. I think after 2003.
I think hoods are tethered. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hoods.
I believe it was
not
after
in my
2003.
division.
The deck lids.
And I've seen a few. Hey, you are one of them whose hood has gone whoosh and covered the windshield.
We're not going to talk about that right now.
You don't want to take away from the prestige of your heat race win.
I'm a heat race. Oh, we missed that in New Egypt. I was announcing loudly to everybody that I was a heat race winner, and I deserve respect, which is true.
Well,
How many heat races have you won, Josh Matthews?
I want a consi.
You won a consi.
It sounds more elegant.
Consolation race winner.
See, I don't use that term conti. I like LCQ or a last chance qualifier because it's your
Because it's
last
more
chance
words
to
for
get
the announcer
show.
to say.
Well, that too. It
It
kills
fills
my
their
time.
time.
But it sounds pivotal. It sounds like this is your
In
last
reality,
chance to
Eric,
get in the
in
show.
reality, you're right, because it is a last chance qualifier, and there are consolation races where nobody makes it in.
Right.
So it is
to me,
two
that's
different things.
here's your consolation prize: it's a bag of toothpaste
Ba-
and some mouthwash. Go home. Thanks for coming.
Are you saying something?
No, I'm just saying it's not the Price is Right. It's a racetrack. It's a last chance to get in the show. If you don't get the
Yeah.
show,
By definition,
sorry.
yes. I'm going with what's easier to say, and
Well, while we continue,
because
to
even
debate
LCQ
that,
is a pain for some people.
well, they use it in Supercross, and I fell in love with it from there.
The problem is, everybody knows what a consi is. No one really knows. Sometimes some people don't know what a LCQ is.
Well, speaking of consies, we did see a new phenomenon introduced in the Xfinity Series race this past weekend, which both races at Bristol, I must say, were pretty good. They were solid. In fact, I would say the Cup race was right up there with Fontana with best race of the year so far.
Atlanta, I thought was good.
It was decent, but I don't
Now-
think it was as competitive.
You know what, though?
Okay.
I think there's a reason why Bristol's empty now. I think if you ask 95% of people, they'd say that race was crap. Now, we're 3 racing enthusiasts. We're 3 racing nerds. So we're going to say that was great because it was good racing. It was good on-track racing. But you don't have to hit people. You don't have to knock people out of the way anymore. And that's what people went to Bristol for.
In two,
You had to come back. Well, as we discussed
You
with Martinsville,
dive bomb, you slide jump. It's an awesome display of racecraft. But 95% of race fans don't care about racecraft. Unfortunately, it is what it is.
in 2012, when I had.
I think he didn't want to argue that point. He just wanted to keep going.
I'm actually going to agree with you.
Okay.
Which
Holy crap!
isn't the best for radio.
Everybody hit pause. Take a deep breath. Eric just agreed with Eric.
In 2012, I had a chance to talk to John Kernan. Back when I had my little internet radio shindig.
Bragger.
No, John Kernan's a great guy. He's helped me a lot.
I'm glad you didn't call him a douche.
No,
I'm bringing douche back to this podcast.
no, we're not. We were talking about Bristol then, because remember, they didn't even grind the lower grooves then. They just introduced this progressive banking, and the racing was kind of too spread out, where there was hardly any
they
contact.
ground the top.
Well, at first they made it progressive banking. Now they kind of...
Whoever was it? Was that Bruton?
It was Bruton Smith. It's an SMI track.
He normally has some good ideas. That wasn't one of them.
Well,
you listen to the drivers.
I asked Kernan, back then, and I may still have this interview stored somewhere.
I'm not against his mandatory caution idea, which kind of we've seen become the caution clock.
Right. Normally he has good ideas.
Yeah.
It's just this.
A lot of people hated that.
This was awesome. If you think like a race car driver, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like you would love to race on a track like this where you can go anywhere you want.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not what the fans want.
Well, and that was the discussion I had with John Kernan about 4 years ago. Was I asked him his
You
perspective.
axed him?
I asked him in the bathroom.
We got through half the show, folks. We got through half.
Which
a little more work to go. I asked him what he thought of the racing at Bristol. Again, this was 4 years ago. It's similar, and he said he thought it was great. But he even asked, what more do people want? It's almost like they want blood. But I said to him, and it's cool because I got to banter with him a little bit. I think it's more of an identity crisis that Bristol's facing. I mean, if you built the Bristol that we have now in Wyoming and you made it a NASCAR Sprint Cup Series stop, that would be fantastic.
You'd have all 50 people live in Wyoming that every race.
Yes, but this is Bristol. It was built on rough and tumble racing and guys getting mad at each other and you having to move somebody out of the way. Back when the bumpers didn't line up, so if you got into somebody, you took the rear wheels off the ground. Now it's
if
not
NASCAR
the
raced
same.
if NASCAR raced at 20 Bristols, it'd be one of the top sports in the country still.
Yeah, but I mean, bulldoze the banking at Daytona. It's still Daytona, but it's not the same Daytona that we grew up watching the sport on. So I think that's the issue they're having with Bristol. Now, whether or not they can revert back, and they've done a lot. Now, don't forget, they even moved the
way I
walls out further
understand it,
to
they
try to narrow
cannot.
the
The way I
track
understand it, they cannot make it the old Bristol.
Bruton has threatened to do it, but
What about
physically they may not be able to.
what about asphalt instead of concrete?
I mean, that's still.
I thought Dover was better with asphalt.
I think you'd still have the same track.
Okay.
It'd still be a highline track, and then you dive bomb. It's awesome to watch as a real person that has raced or really loves racing. It's not the spectacle that it was.
Yeah.
Now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. suggested, he said back in the day they used to put a sealer down on the apron of the racetrack, and it would allow you to kind of grip those left side tires down there and corner a little better. And he thinks that may help the bottom lane match up with the outside lane a little more.
Well,
It doesn't matter. You'll still have.
You would
still
still
have
the
multiple lanes.
disparaging of it. But
I'm okay with multiple lanes.
The fans aren't. They want the bump and run.
No, I get that, but
speaking of sealer, can we start some type of advocacy to get the sealer back at Richmond? I mean, don't you remember when that track used to be as black as the midnight sky? I mean, 2002, like cars would spin and you would have like green smoke from the sealer coming up.
Yeah.
Because they used to just lay a sealer over the top of the pavement. They wouldn't repave it all the time, but it would look like freshly paved
It might be
asphalt.
okay with this current package, though.
Yeah, but now they've let the track wear, and I tried to research why they stopped putting the sealer on the track, and I never found an answer to it.
hooray for chemicals.
But that was the look, the mean, nasty look of what Richmond used to be. And now, I'm sure this weekend we're going to see cars running up against the wall. When you had that sealer, you still had good side-by-side racing, but it wasn't as spread out as it was. It was still a short track feel, but it wasn't like a super speedway look of racing like we've seen the last couple of years without it. So we got to get that started. So all like 15 people that are listening to this, somebody get that going.
Was he saying 15 the whole time? I swear he was saying 50. I got my hopes up.
Yeah, it's
Which is it?
It might be somewhere between.
Okay.
Now here's the irony: we're talking about how to change what we just said was probably one of the top 2 races of the season.
I'm not saying I don't. Okay, what's that? The fans turned away from that. Now, I got a feeling you're going to bring up this article that I don't necessarily agree with.
You are good. I don't know if it's because you can see my laptop or if it's because you know how I think.
I'll let Eric describe it. I just want to preface it by saying blaming fans is a cop-out.
Well, hold on a second. If you go through the entire article, which is at ESPN.com from Ryan McGee, who actually has a podcast.
I think I have a tie into this when you get a little farther along here.
Ryan McGee elected to use this past Sunday as an example, and he posts his thoughts on ESPN.com, and it was saying the fact that even after having such an incredible weekend of racing, where we saw Eric Jones get the win in Xfinity over our last couple lap duel betwing Kyle Busch and Kyle
You only
Larson.
like that because of the name.
So,
well, he spells it
wrong.
correctly. No, he spells it correctly.
Wow. Carl Edwards ended up leading almost half the race on Sunday, but the action between competitors was so riveting that it was hard to turn away. There were times where you had Jimmy Johnson and A.J. Allmendinger slamming each other trying to get the free pass. It was good stuff.
But what you saw at Bristol used to happen at all the other tracks.
Yes. But
with the old, I know they're trying to get back to that.
It brings us to the point that Ryan McGee is making, and that is that it just seems like that the NASCAR fan base, more so than any other sport in the country, is so incredibly hard to please. And he uses a couple of really good examples, but there's some pretty generic and basic stuff here, like people who are saying that the race needs to start, the grandstands were empty, TV ratings are down, the racing sucked. It was better when it was a two-lane racetrack. The national anthem singer was too fancy. Darrell Waltrip and Jeff Gordon don't like each other.
I'm not saying no to any of these
Race
yet.
started too early for West Coast fans. Race should have started at noon like they used to for East Coast fans. And everything was better in the good old days.
There is some of that everything was better in the good old days.
Well,
but
part of that is
there is some of the things were better in the good old days.
But you have to take into account this is any older person that you meet is going to be like, oh, damn kids these days and all that. Well, there's something called juvenoia, and it is a
what? Bless you.
It's called juvenoia.
Bless you.
Juvenoia.
Like that's.
I'm not going to say it another 20 times.
It almost sounds racist.
No,
that's why I'm trying to clarify the
No,
prefix.
it's no. Basically, it's that it's a perception that everything was better back when you were younger. That your past was better than
But that's not true. Supercross is better now than it used to be.
Well, I'm saying, but a lot of these fans are as they've gotten older, like, oh no, it's not like it used to be. You got to go back.
I can make an example
these
of why
real drivers.
This article is wrong. Watch a K&N Series race. K&N Series races are great. And that's what NASCAR, that's what the Sprint Cup was 30 years ago.
I'm agreeing with you.
I will argue, I don't mean to interrupt you, Josh. I will
Yes,
argue one subject, though, on the K&N side. The turnover ratio in that series is horrific. Guys can't sustain a ride anymore because it's ride buyers and young kids whose parents have deep pockets, and that's nothing against anybody.
I'm more talking about the format the tracks are on, the short race format.
But there's no veteran leadership in that series anymore. It's almost like the process itself is broken.
But what does it have to do with the on-track product?
The on-track product, easy for me to say, it's decent on the K&N side, and I agree with you there. But I think part of the product that makes NASCAR what it is the other item that you pointed to that the Cup Series is missing. Doesn't have the star power names, doesn't have the personalities that it used to. You're not going to get that in the lower feeder series anyway.
But I think part of that is media and who they want to promote and trying to give everybody a fair amount of attention while also, I mean, how do you, everybody's favorite, Dale Jr., or something like that. I mean, or Kyle. You have
to cater to the masses to some extent.
Yes, but this also feeds into the drivers not being allowed to have personalities anymore. How can you push?
Which does happen in K&N too. They're not really allowed to say anything either. That's a widespread NASCAR thing. But the on-track product is better.
But now you're also getting into no matter how good the race is, you got to. What the fans want, as we were talking about, is different, and the fans are going to complain and whine about stuff. And no, you're not. You're never going to please everyone. You're not. And depending on where you live, who you like, it's going to be an issue. But a lot of this comes down to they've never been in a car. I mean,
right.
On a track doing this.
It's funny you said that because I made that point.
Yes, you did mention this earlier, and you and I having driven before.
Almost anyone that watches baseball played. Almost anyone that watches hockey played.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was floor hockey,
But
or something.
99% of people watch races never raced.
Exactly.
So they know something's not making them happy, but they don't know how to communicate it.
Yes, it's that, and even though something can be really, really awesome on the track, they don't see it. They don't know what's going on. Like the car gets just a touch loose or something. Well, okay, you got a little loose. Okay, you get in there and do that at 200 miles an hour, and tell me how clean your underwear is.
This
afterwards.
was something I touched on last week. The so-called good old days are at our fingertips right now. I mean, we could pull up the Busch and Craven photo finish at Darlington and the plate races when Earnhardt was still alive.
I don't entirely disagree, but I'm not sure that's as big a factor as you believe that it is.
Well, because it kind of demoralizes what actually happens today. I mean, look, California, Bristol, and even Daytona were really, really good races. But the problem is when you compare them to things
California
that happened
was
10,
okay.
15, 20 years ago, California was amazing. How dare you?
Actually, I thought California was good up until like the last 50.
But California was a good race for people that like racing. It wasn't necessarily something that fans are going to get really excited
Oh
about.
no, they're too spread out for a lot of people. But there was a lot going on, and I thought Atlanta was good because the cars were all over.
became so popular because of contact, because of drivers fighting. How did NASCAR get put on the map? Because of a fight at the 1979 Daytona 500.
Exactly, and now F1 is doing a much better job and having more contact than we saw at Bristol.
And Vettel and Kvyat were arguing in the green room, and they showed the whole thing. They didn't. No officials interrupted it or anything. They let them talk. They said, "Hey, you're getting in behind the scenes right now."
Ecclestone paid for some analysts, and they said, "We're beating NASCAR. Don't change it."
Which in NASCAR, they make everybody go in the trailer so they can hash it out, and no one gets to see any of it.
Not that anybody noticed, but Rosberg won again.
Yeah.
But what does that matter? Well, just give him the damn trophy. Let's talk about the fun part.
One other thing from this article here that Ryan McGee makes a good point, and again, this article's at ESPN.com. I'm scrolling up to find a title real quick. Whining fans may need a reality check was part of it.
Okay, hold on a second.
Wait, could I get
Make
this?
your point. Make your point.
Let me just get this quote. Now
I'm very.
This
article upsets me.
No, it's Ryan McGee is an incredible journalist. Here it is. Quote.
He can't say anything mean about any journalist because you never know.
Oh, I probably can. And one of the reasons
he has.
One of the reasons why I am obsessed with this article is because Alan Bestwick is on board with it, and I have a legitimate man crush on that guy. And I'll say it. It's on record.
I like Mike Rowe.
Who? The Ford guy?
No, not because of Ford, but Dirty Jobs. Yeah.
I was gonna say you're not a Ford guy.
No, I'm not.
Anyway,
here's the quote from the article. Have all NASCAR moves been good ones? No. Did they make big moves all at once? Yes, a decade ago. But what's happened today is great stuff. Don't miss it because of an obsession with the good old days, which, FYI, weren't all that great. There's a reason why we remember the 76 and 79 Daytona 500s and the 95 and 99 Bristol night races. Those finishes stood out because most finishes weren't that close. Go back and watch those races in their entirety. If they happened now, people would say the finish was good, but the rest of it was boring. He hit the nail on the head. By the way, end quote. He didn't say that he hit the nail on the head. That was me. But
I hit the nail on the head.
So that's not arguing that the fans are the problem. That's just saying that the perspective is a little off.
How do you fix it? Does he offer any solutions in this?
No.
And that goes back to what you said.
Weren't you the one that said if you're going to point out a problem, you need to have a solution? But the fans are speaking.
I think the solution is the fans have to.
Freaking Bristol is 2/3 empty. You can't just tell the fans to chill. They're speaking.
Well, I don't know if the date had anything to do with it, and I did see Mike Joy post something that their hotel
It's going to be
room,
2/3 empty when they go back there.
But the hotel room for that weekend, for whatever reason, was like $300 a night.
It's been like that forever.
Yeah, nothing's new there.
That's nothing new. People say the ticket prices are high. The ticket prices are the same. That's like where when they were filling the place.
No, they might even be less.
They'll be less in August.
The fans are speaking, and you want fans to complain. When I worked in customer service for a long time, okay, the problem is when people don't say anything, they just never show up again, and that's what you're starting to see in NASCAR. You got to listen to the last few people that are complaining. There's a lot of people that just say screw this, and you never hear from them.
Yeah, but not everybody who has a voice is entitled to say what's on their mind. I mean, what's the percentages on Twitter?
I'm not saying they're all right.
Only 13% of the people in the country are on Twitter. So why would you listen to everybody who's only taking up a small part of what makes up the world?
There's a problem. take all the input you can. I'm not saying they're right, but say you have 10,000 people saying the same thing, maybe you should listen.
Well,
Consider it.
They are trying things. I mean, the heat races for the Xfinity Series was
I thought
try.
that was really interesting. I if you don't mind, give me a second here. I want to make a suggestion on how that could have
The
been.
world you want.
Well, you're starting 40 cars, right?
Yes.
Okay. They did half the field and then half the field, 2 heats, and they're each 50 laps. Okay. I think it should have been 4 heats. That way.
And a Consi?
Sounds familiar.
But not even to tease that whole point. But 4 heats, that way you only have 10 cars at a time. The track is small enough that'll keep everybody, occupied. Now, it would also give anyone who starts, in the back a chance to kind of go around and, less risk of, fewer cars to wreck at once.
The heats were too long.
Definitely too long. I should have been 20 laps. 'Cause now, look, it's your top series. I'm not saying we go down to our Wall Stadium, 8-lap heat race. No, 20 laps. I think that'd be fair. And 10 cars per heat, 4 heats.
Now, my only counter argument to that is I think you can make the heats 5 laps, and you would have gotten the same result you had on Saturday. The risk.
I'm willing to go a little lower on the heat, but what I'm saying is you want to give them a little.
Eric's saying it's a poop show.
No, the risk versus it's a good idea, okay, but the risk versus reward factor isn't there. If we had 50 cars showing up to the races, then it would be worth it. Like when they do it at Eldora for the dirt race, because they're only starting 30 trucks. I mean, even though they only start 32 now.
I can't wait till we talk about Eldora.
Yeah, hopefully we're not recording night of. It would be nice to do it night after, so that we can maybe hear on a
depends
Thursday.
if you're dropping the soap somewhere.
Hopefully I will be out of the detention centers by then for work.
You were a bad boy.
I'm always bad.
Oops.
But they're trying things. And the other good thing they did, which you guys are proponents of, is because of the heat race format, the race itself was only 200 laps as opposed to 300, which it was last year. And people think that was a key factor in why guys were bouncing off each other racing for the lead between Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, and Eric Jones.
I understand you're talking about, it's NASCAR. It's not lower level short track stuff. So, I mean, there's an endurance factor, and they want to make that part of everything. But engines aren't blowing up anymore, like Eric's said a number of times. I mean, the equipment's been lasting. So, at this point, give them something to shoot for, force them to race, give them a reason to go.
They're trying.
No, I think they're definitely they're heading in the right direction. I really do. It's just not there yet.
Bristol, it was always like, okay, maybe the racing sucks a little this year, but we still got Bristol, and now even Bristol's starting to fall off, and it's concerning.
Well, we'll see what happens this week. They're going to have the heat races as well at Richmond. Xfinity Cup Series will be there, and then 2 weeks' time we'll be back on the play track at Talladega. So,
and you're worried about Richmond, so that's you're Mr. Optimism.
Well, Richmond's tough. I'm hoping that the low downforce package that they're going to run will play.
There was a time when
difference.
Richmond was one of the more fun tracks to.
It was a must-see ticket to go.
They almost built a Richmond clone in Long Island.
Staten Island.
Was it Staten Island?
Yes, it was.
One of those
right under the Goethals Bridge.
Right on top of the landfill?
No, there's going to be one in the Meadowlands, too.
Wait, it was over there?
Over there.
Over there. Okay.
Well,
or is it over here now?
Well, I hope you all stay right here. And when we come back on the other side, we're going to give you a preview of some of the local short track action, and we're going to give credit where credit is due.
Wall Stadium!
We'll be right back to the RPM Podcast. Hey everyone, this is Eric Brennan from the RPM Podcast. If you're looking for a dependable full auto repair and preventative maintenance center, then you need to check out O'Shea's Auto Repair in Wall, New Jersey. The family man himself, Tim O'Shea, has been providing the highest quality of automotive repair since 2000 of both domestic and imported cars, trucks, and SUVs. From race cars to street cars, O'Shea's Auto Repair covers it all. For more information, visit their website at o'sheasautorepair.com. O'Shea's Auto Repair, supporter of the RPM Podcast and proud sponsor of the O'Shea Auto Repair Factory Stocks at Wall Stadium Speedway. I know we were just talking about Ryan McGee and the article that he just put together on ESPN.com. I don't know who runs the ESPN Motorsports Twitter feed, but apparently there's a New Jersey tie to the tweet they just put out about a half hour ago. The fast food chicken available at many New Jersey turnpike stops may be the best in the world. Buy a lot. Thanks, Popeye's Chicken.
What was the point of that?
Oh, I didn't have my cricket sound effect ready.
No, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Why this is not motorsports related. But I guess this person's in Jersey, so that must be a good thing.
So, what were we about to talk about?
Yeah, let's.
Well, shifting gears now.
Thank you.
Hold on a minute. Lost my place here. We have to give credit where credit is due. There's a gentleman in our area who has impacted a lot of people for many reasons. Obviously, his temper has gotten him in some trouble in the
It's a
past.
good choice of words. That's why I was laughing.
But over the last few years, I would say there's been a little bit of a transition, and we are, of course, talking about Paul Hartwig, who this Sunday,
Junior.
Paul Hartwig Jr., held off Matt Hirschman to win a modified event at Evergreen Raceway.
I still call it Mountain for what it's worth.
Yeah, well, I could see why. I may start doing the same thing. According to Speed51.com, we ran a story on Hartwig's success. It was a dream come true, considering that he looked up to the Hirschman family name for quite some time. And it's a really cool story. Somebody who showed up with an open-faced trailer and did it the old-fashioned way. And you know what? Despite whatever troubles he may have had in the past where his temper bit him, whether it be indoor races or at other racetracks, that is a very giving family. And I'll share one quick story before we start previewing what's going to come up at Wall Stadium Speedway. At Turkey Derby, Zane Ziner had a motor problem in his Willett Racing on number 76. And one of the first people to go over to that team was Paul Hartwig Sr. And he went over to him and said, Zane, what do you want to do? He said, I'll run right down the road and I'll get Paul's car for you. And just as he started to go out to the trailer, one of Dick Barney's guys came over and tapped Zane on the shoulder. And I would have loved to see Zane in one of those Hartwig racing cars just to see what it would have been capable of. Now I don't have to anymore because Paul showed what it was capable of. And huge congratulations to him.
Yeah, personally, he's helped me a ton of times. At Mountain Speedway, Evergreen Speedway, whatever you feel like calling it, whatever's easier for you to pronounce.
It's just a New York in me, man.
Yeah, now you're going out into the boonies in Pennsylvania here. I ran there twice in the snow, and the second race, Paul, he pushed me out of a snowbank that I got jammed into by, I believe it was TJ Capish. And I was, doing the forward, reverse, just trying to get out of it. Next thing I know, Hartwig's up behind me, pushes me out, and I ended up taking third in that race. So, I mean, that was a big help. I had a transmission go. With no question, he said, "Hey, come to my shop." Handed me a Turbo 350 trans, threw it in my car, finished the season with it, no problems. I mean, the kids helped me a lot. And yeah, he's a guy you love to hate, and he's gotten himself into some trouble. But
I'll tell you what, man. Paul Hartwig III, that kid can drive. He's a real sweet kid. He won his first race with us over at Englishtown. I mean, he's definitely got something.
It's a racing family, and
it absolutely is.
I believe that may have a lot to do with Paul Jr.'s success over the last 6 to 8 months. Remember, he got a podium finish in the slingshot race down in one of the indoor events. I don't remember if it was Trenton or AC. It was Trenton.
That was Trenton, yes.
And now, of course, I mean, listen, if you're going to go out and win your first race in a modified, I don't think there's anybody that you would rather finish in front of than Matt Hirschman. Because if anybody could find a way around you, it's Hirschman. And for whatever reason, he wasn't able to do it.
Yeah.
So that's got to be big.
And keep in mind, I mean, he doesn't have a whole Hartwig does not have a huge funding background. I mean, this is mostly his ace in the hole landscaping business that, he's funding himself. He did get some sponsors to help him with tires and some fuel out there. And, looks like it paid off. And, good for him. I've even been helping him on the side a little bit here and there, cutting lawns and whatnot. Good stuff.
Once again, congratulations to him and his team. I say his team. It's probably all of about 3 or 4 people that took the trip out there to get him going.
It's whoever is able to whoever loves race. There's a lot of guys. JC Duvall is a huge proponent of his. Helps him out a lot. Great guy. The Rutt family. who have raced in the factory stocks.
And modifieds.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of great people.
That's the other
behind
thing.
him.
I mean, Hartwig did let Neuroth III get his first opportunity in a modified, and he made the Garden State Classic, and I believe
Which was
he
actually
finished
Saints. I think we had
top 10.
31 cars that night.
And I think he ended up in the top 10. I don't know why my memory is telling me he finished 8th. I'd have to confirm that, but that's just going off. Congratulations to Paul Hartwig. I mean, considering everything that he's done for people in the past, it came back to him big on Sunday. We ended up having 2 days of practice.
As an official, he definitely gives me something to do.
I'm trying to find
Go
some
ahead,
way to
segue.
transition. There's nothing easy. 2 days of practice at Wall after Mother Nature intervened on day one. A little bit light, but we know that we're going to have a lot of participation, considering the fact that as of right now, the track has said they don't have room for a couple of modifieds and sportsman
Well,
teams
I
in
looked at
terms of
previous
parking.
years. We thought it was light because we basically the last thing we did was Turkey Derby. We actually had a few more cars than last year at this time. So, and also it was spread over 2 days, and pretty much only a few of the people came Saturday, came Sunday. So we had different cars. People just picked one day of the weekend. So it was actually a very good, very, very good turnout for practice.
I'd say the preseason favorite, which I will take credit. I don't know how many people I told last year I thought Stephen Reed was going to be the guy to beat. This year, I just liked the way that Eric Moriello and the entire Dick Barney racing team looked this past weekend. And Moriello did exactly what Reed did last year. He set quick time, would come into the pits, go out, and try to beat it. He did that about 3 or 4 times on Saturday.
Did you notice who was right behind him
on
the whole time?
on the speed
on
chart?
time, yeah, Shauna.
Yes,
And who's the second fastest in Sportsman?
Blake Barney.
Right.
Who will
So
be
I mean,
making
it's
his
not just
Sportsman
Eric.
debut.
Like it's the
That
whole
team appears to be on its game, and I'd say that he would be the favorite going into 2016.
But who can? The modified field is ridiculous this year. I don't think you can safely predict anybody.
Well, for the last few years, it's been the most competitive division, which is saying something, considering that a lot of tracks in the area can't handle 13, 14, 15 cars, and we were getting full fields almost every week.
We ran Concies,
We did.
which meant you had more than 26 cars there.
So I think 2016 is going to be more of the same. And all the way down the list, there's interesting storylines. I mean, we talked about some of the guys we went to New Egypt with, including Vinny Troya, Nick Van Wickle. They took their cars down to North Carolina to try to up their game this season. It looks promising for them. Big story in the factory stock division is that Camaro, driven by defending champion Joe Manjo. He wasn't running a transponder during practice, so nobody knows what
And
that car looks like on
he
the
was-
stopwatch.
I think that was on purpose.
He definitely has some bugs to work out in that car. You could just see it going on the track. When it gets going, though, I think it's going to be that car's going to be a story this year.
And the 4-cylinder stocks, we thought TJ Graves would be somewhat of a favorite, considering Ronnie Mullen is not, as of this point, going to defend his title. Graves had a problem in practice. He just put out there this morning that he's going to skip the opener and head down to Richmond with the family. Todd Pillow came back with an outlaw body scheme painted just like modified racer Jimmy Blewett, and he was struggling
And
a little
Cole
bit in
Ormsby.
practice. And Cole Ormsby, too.
All
who
three
may
cars
be-
look alike.
Maybe a bit of a favorite in the limited late model division. So the storyline's all over.
Hey, you forgot about me. I'm gonna actually do work on my car next week, and hopefully,
But the season starts this week.
yeah, I know. I'm not gonna be able to make.
It's not going to be the
this
same
weekend.
without the ketchup bottle out there.
Yeah, I know. Well, I wasn't the ketchup bottle in Turkey Derby, so
Yeah, that's true.
that
So
car-
what's going on with your getting a ride?
I don't know. Unless somebody wants to offer me something, I still gotta get my Hans recertified. I mean, I'm way behind the 8 ball on this one. But I just finished up a Thrills and Spills video for the factory stocks for last year, and between doing that video and talking to everybody else from the track lately, I'm getting the itch. I gotta go. I gotta get back on the
Well,
track.
hopefully you come Saturday.
I plan on being at the track at the very least, whether I help out, as part of the track crew and official, or if I'm just wandering around the pits, talking to everybody. I want to be there, it's a passion, and I want to be in a car. I do, but it's I got to get my car straightened out. I got to figure out what's wrong, what's going on with it.
If you guys live in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, we're pretty much right in the middle of New Jersey. We have 7 features on opening night, and
It's
not
a show.
not to toot my own horn, our own horn, but we run a very tight show. So come on down, support your local short track. If we're not the most local short track, come anyway. Come to Wall Stadium.
It's worth the trip.
Yep.
I mean, it really is. I'm very lucky to call Wall a home track, considering where I live and the other options in the area. And that's not a swipe at any other local track. It just shows how good Wall is in the local short track market.
Over the past couple of years, I've seen their show tighten up so much with the track crew being more efficient.
Having karting officials run the show.
Karting.
No, you can put whatever reason behind it or justify it however you want, but it's definitely become a much better run show. I think the calls have overall gotten better. I mean, look, I'm a driver. You've been a driver. You're now an official. I don't agree with every call. You didn't agree with every call when you were a driver. I mean, there's gonna be butting heads once in a while.
Well, as an official, there's times when you're gonna make one person happy and one person not. So it's just part of the job.
Yeah, but again, like you said earlier, as we talked about the Indy non-call, for lack of a better term, in oval racing, you got to make a decision quick. You don't have 8 laps to say, all right, So in the position that you're put in, it is what it is. I mean, you can't keep everybody happy.
If we don't make a call within like 2 yellow flag laps, the crowd starts to turn on us.
Yeah, but I still one of the best track crews I've ever seen.
Our track crew is amazing,
and it's only getting better. And I'm really, really proud to be part of it and to have been part of it as an official as well. So
and we have a couple really good announcers and that Eric guy.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't have to toot my horn.
You toot your own horn plenty.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep doing it this Saturday at Wall Stadium Speedway. For a full schedule, visit wallspeedwayracing.com. Next week, we'll be talking about our short track experience, finally. After we've been in a little bit of darkness waiting for racing season to ramp up, and it's finally
We've been doing this for 2 months now?
Yeah.
A little more?
This is show 8, so 2 months, yeah.
Yeah, although we did skip 2 weeks because our schedule sucked. So we should be on episode 10.
Me.
Well, no, you were part of it, then I was part of it. But I did ask you guys before for your permission to...
No, son. You cannot do that.
I won't do it again.
Well, till next time.
So, how's it going, guys?
Yeah, I think this is it.
We were doing so good, and now we're just going choo-choo
the
right on to the mouth.
Can't close the deal.
For Josh Matthews, Eric Graham, I'm Eric Brennan. We'll see you all next week. Hopefully, we'll see you this Saturday at Wall Stadium Speedway. Thank you for listening to the RPM
Come the
Podcast.
Wall. Come the Wall, please. Come the Wall.
We'll see you next week.
Come the Wall.